What is this? I can't hear it. Whoa. That was awkward. What happens if I do this? Oh. What about this? There he is. Can you hear me? Oh, fuck. Hey, your microphone is off.
Yeah,
There we go. There's my sexy man.
That's me. I'm trying to think where I can prop this on so I don't have to sit here with it in my hand the whole time.
Yeah, that's a constant struggle for me. Apparently, this app is not available on a computer. If it were, it would be so much easier for me.
Well, I found it.
Really?
Yeah, but it's weird. No, hold on, let me see. First, let me see if I can find something to prop this though on first. I saw you licking your butt.
Oh, you weren't supposed to see that.
Gross.
Let's search here. Oh, no, that's just what's on the computer. Fuck. I guess I gotta go to the Microsoft store.
Like I found a free thing for it. I just didn't know how to use it. So
in the Microsoft store?
I just Googled it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
You forgot about Google? Jesus,
Yeah.
man. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Wow, my dumbass just... Wow, I should probably stop drinking a little bit. My dumbass just typed google.com on my Google homepage.
Oh, man.
Oh, there we go. Can I install it? What do you mean I don't have any devices? Huh. That's interesting.
What is it saying to you? What?
Oh, well, my computer doesn't run on Android, so I can't use it on here.
Well, neither does mine.
Well, I mean, hang on. Justin is the computer guy. Oh.
No, too high.
Can I do this? What? I just accessed the Play Store. What the fuck over? Alright, here we go.
Can you hear me?
Yep. That's Justin.
All If I just bring this chair into me,
Yeah, we can't install this onto our computers.
I was able to install it on mine. I don't know why yours didn't, but
Well, the Google just told me I could.
All right, can either of you guys hear me?
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah. I hear you. Scott hears you.
Yep.
Apparently, you don't hear us. I swear, like, every other week he has this issue.
Can you guys hear me though?
Can
Yes.
you hear me now? Justin.
What in the hell?
Justin. Bro, I swear to God, every other week you have this issue.
Let's
All
get
right.
this. It's better.
Either of you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me? No? Okay. I really should do a better job of keeping my devices charged, because I'm going to be switching back and forth because all of them are almost dead.
Nice. This is not working out very well.
Well. Oh. How much is this thing charged? Not a lot. And this thing doesn't have a lot left.
I was just telling Kelly that I was watching the videos that y'all had already posted. I'm having to make a prop so I can sit my phone on it.
Oh, shit. What did I do with it? It's over there. Man, this stuff goes down nice.
That's what she said.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was telling her about. I was like, yeah, I was watching the videos, and then all of a sudden, I looked and I was like, oh. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. You're doing better than me. Oh.
Since I got you on camera and we're not on YouTube yet, I got to show you this.
What do we got? Oh, nice. Nice.
Not a sponsor.
Wouldn't matter if we were on YouTube because it's legal where you are.
That's true.
Now, me, on the other hand, this is all that is legal. Let's see. Where's my camera?
Lucky Kentucky.
I mean, it's not bad. It's $750, and like with any CBD product, it has like a weird aftertaste sometimes, but it's surprisingly not bad.
I told you what happened with me with the CBD, didn't I?
Maybe.
That I tried a whole bottle of it and for like a whole month and it didn't.
All right,
anything.
can you guys hear me now?
Yeah,
Yep.
Can you hear us?
Oh man, like all three of my headsets died on me, so
Dude.
I'm just gonna
Oh,
call
no.
Yeah, so I've got my regular juice tank, and then I've got my other tank. she joining in too?
No, that's me. I had to call
No,
in.
he's talking through that.
Oh. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get all this going so that way everyone can watch us.
Well, I just clicked on there and everybody can watch us.
Beautiful.
I wonder.
Okay, I don't think.
Let's see.
Beautiful. Okay, now let's get this streaming on over to Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, here it is right here, the 8x8.
Okay.
I didn't know how to.
Let's see if we're going live now on the Facebook.
It's flashing and not doing anything.
Of course. Okay, let's try this.
Let us see. Oh, there we go. Whoa. Stop. Yeah, I got, yeah, it just says going live and flashing zeros.
All right, let's see if I can fix this. Doot. Don't you love technology?
Yeah, I got, absolutely not. I mean, I do love the fact that I can stream my porn from my phone to the TV screen, though, so that's pretty cool.
You're going to hell.
That was a foregone conclusion a long time ago.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube also.
Oh, we are?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube. Yeah, now let's see if I can get us live on Facebook.
Oh.
Streaming. Let me go live, Facebook.
All right, so real quick,
That was last week, I think. Live now. Let's see.
There we go. Ryan's beautiful mug up there.
We are, in fact, live. Oh, hey, that's me.
Jesus. All right. Well, cheers to technology. God damn. Salud, fellas. Scott, are you smoking or are you drinking? Drinking. All right, Ryan, you're doing both. All right, cheers, fellas.
Yeah. You know me.
Guys, I needed that after all this. Like, I was thinking around with all the live stream and everything over the weekend, and it was going to be beautiful. And then try and do it today, and all of a sudden, technology doesn't want to work. All my headsets die. So, well,
Yeah.
we're working now. So.
It happens.
So, all right. So, we're going to be covering some, relatively heavy shit tonight. But I figured we kind of start off with both, and we as veterans can all get a laugh out of it because we're veterans and we laugh at fucked up stuff. But what are the three questions? I'm curious if the questions have changed since you got out versus now. But what are the three questions that non-veterans ask you that make you want to crawl up walls and throat punch people?
Did you ever kill anybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's number one.
Yep.
So my question on that one is, do you, like when it's a little kid, do you take offense if it's a little kid?
No,
No,
I mean,
not at all.
I think I try not to at all because everybody's got that morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
But I think people just don't realize how offensive it is. It's not something we like thinking about.
Right.
I just think
And
it's a
how
stupid
often
question.
when you got out of the military, do you did you see like a preponderance of it when you came back home after you got out of the military that people ask that question more so than now after you've been out for a while?
No, actually, I've seen it drop.
Same.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But I tell you what, like, I mean, you know, I'm thankful that you know, as far as like what I experienced, you know, there wasn't. I mean, there were only 2 times where I was essentially in a position to, you know, pull the trigger and do anything. But luckily, I didn't have to. But like for you guys, Ryan, I don't think I've ever really discussed it with you. Like, did you see combat? And I mean, how do you explain what combat's like to someone that's never been in it or even been close to the prospect of it happening?
Honestly, I don't. I just I turn everything into a joke, or I'm just like really sarcastic about it. You know, like how was it, or what was it like? And I'm just like, I mean, you know,
There's a reason they call it the suck.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, I'm like, I saw my little bit, you know, and then I know guys that saw fucking hella more than I did, and I know guys that saw way more than that. So I'm just like, I mean, I'll usually say something smart ass like, oh, you know, it's like you're in this really cool place and you meet interesting people and everything's on fire and everybody's trying to kill you and there's goats.
But like, how? Because I mean, like it's frustrating being a veteran sometimes because obviously we can't look a civilian in the eyes and be like, I pulled the fucking trigger. Like, I mean, most of them would run screaming off into the hills, and the other half would probably be like, they need a jacket, the kind you can't get out of. But there's got to be some kind of education that we can do. I mean, there's been documentaries, you know, that show a little snippet of what combat is like, but not even the after effects. And like, what was it like once the shit hit the fan and then it stopped? What was it like for you guys?
You want to take this first, Ryan, or?
Sure. I mean, I remember the very first shot that I heard fired while we were on a mission. And like, I remember everything about that moment and all that stuff. And everything after that was just like, you know, your normal day. It was, for me at least, it was just like, you know, this is our life now. And, you know, you just get used to it really quick. And honestly, I don't even try to explain it to people because there are some things in this world that you can read as much, you can watch as many documentaries, you can talk to as many people that were there. If you were not there, you will simply not understand. I could tell you what it smelled like. I could tell you what it looked like. I could draw a picture for you with as many words as I can find in the English language. But if you were not there, you will not grasp the gravity of it. You'll just not get it. And so
Yeah.
part of me is perfectly okay with that. Everybody shouldn't be able or shouldn't have to understand what that kind of experience is like. And I am perfectly okay with people being completely ignorant about it, because if they are, then that means we did our job right. So it's not one of those things that I try to describe or explain. And even when you get around people that were there and can share the stories, most of the time you don't. Like when you're with somebody that knows, you just it's the fucking nod. You just get the nod.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I know, and I know that you know, and you know that I know. and that's all that matters. There was a point I went to early on when I got into politics. I used to go to a bunch of different VFWs and Legion posts and all that stuff, and talk to these guys. And I walked in one, and I want to say it was some rural town in Texas. And I walked in there, and I was trying to talk to somebody, and there was this old guy. And I want to say he was at least a Korean War vet, at least. Like, dude was pretty old. And I'm walking out of the post, and he's sitting at the bar, and I'm walking out of the post, and I passed him, and he was on my left side. He's just sitting there, just old guy, old guy attire. He had the khakis and the plaid shirt with the suspenders and everything. And he just like, he reaches out and he grabs my arm, and he just looks at me just looks at me. And he's like, this guy was a fucking trigger puller. And then he just like nods. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. And it was just one of those things. Like, if you know, and you're able to recognize people that know. So, and I just had this conversation with a guy that works for me a couple days ago. Really, most of the people that did something in some capacity don't really talk about it. Like almost 9 times out of 10, if you come across somebody who is talking about it and telling all these grand stories, no shit.
Right.
And just because the ones what's the quote? Those who don't know talk, and those who know don't talk.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I just don't try to convey that message, because that's not a message that people will understand.
Right.
Well, my thing with that is with civilians, it's really hard to explain to them how we would literally get comfortable there with going out every day, and possibly, that could be our last time out.
Yeah.
And we're comfortable with it. It was always to get comfortable, not complacent.
Right.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And like there's not much more I can say that he didn't just say. It's pretty much spot on. But if I do talk about it, go ahead.
No, you were saying.
Well, and it's hard to I had 2 experiences when I was in the Navy. I had one that was I was on deployment in 2003, and we were off the coast of Kuwait, and we were anchored, and this small boat comes just hauling ass towards us, and I'm on the starboard side gun mount. It's a 50 cal gun mount, and I shot off all 6 pencil flares at this small boat, and they keep coming towards us. And not 2 years prior to that, the USS Cole had been bombed. And so, I'm literally, by my guess, I'm no more than 5 seconds away from pulling the trigger and emptying 100 rounds of 50 caliber machine gun rounds into this small boat. Thankfully, at the last minute, our security patrol boat goes and cuts them off. Come to find out, it's a goddamn Kuwaiti Coast Guard not showing a flag on their ship or on their boat. And so there was that, and then there was the Suez Canal we're going through, and fucking goddamn Aloha snack bar assholes are just shooting pot shots over the berms, and trying to explain to someone that report like that, like of a ricochet, and trying to replicate that sound. Hollywood doesn't do a good job of it, but even then, like, you get that. The best way I've been able to explain to someone is, if you've ever had to shit so bad and you've puckered your butthole to prevent the overload from happening, multiply that by 1,000, and that's the pucker effect you get when you hear a round pass by your body. And trying to explain that to someone is still a really difficult thing. And, and going even further, than going into combat, I haven't been there, so I don't know, but it's a scary thing knowing that someone is effectively trying to end your life. And
that
even.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just even further, like, trying to explain to a civilian, like, when civilians ask me, like, would you have killed for the military? And I always go back to Full Metal Jacket, and I go around the scene when they killed the sniper, and the heavy machine gunner just simply said, "Better you than me." And
yeah.
when I tell civilians that, they look at me like, "How fucked up are you?" And I'm like, "Look, they're adult combatants. They know the stakes in this game. They know them just as much as I do. The biggest difference is I'm fighting for a country. They're fighting for a god. That's scary as shit. And trying to explain that to a civilian is not easy."
You know that scene in Black Hawk Down where Grimes and the dude from Delta were on the corner, and he's like, "How do you know?" Or maybe it was another guy, but it was Grimes and somebody else. And he's like, "How do you know if they're shooting at you or if they're shooting at us?" And he's like, "A hiss is close, a zing or whatever he said is." Whatever. And then right after he says that, they get the zing, and he's like, "Now they're shooting at us," because they weren't directly taking fire yet. And he was like, "Well, when can we shoot back?" "Well, how do you know they're shooting at us?" And he's like, "A hiss, it means it's close." Whatever term he used, he was like, "That's when they're shooting at us." And then right after he says that, bam, it comes, and you hear that sound, and that is probably the most accurate I have heard any movie get to that particular sound.
Yeah.
I will say this much, that like when talking to civilians about it, I actually was talking to my therapist about this the other day, and she said it perfectly, that when we do talk about it, we have our prepackaged stories that we put out so that we're protecting ourselves so that we don't have to delve into it any more than we have to.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I mean that's kind of a perfect segue. I don't think there's really any way to kind of broach a topic any other way but just rip off the fucking Band-Aid. But talking about suicide, both active duty and as a veteran, Ryan, you had done a post earlier. The only way that we're going to get better about this is to talk about it openly and candidly. Like, how are we going to? How do we stop this epidemic of our brothers and sisters ending their lives? How do we start even for active duty? I understand, and it pisses me off to no end, because the second that you go and talk to a head doc in the military, you can pretty much give your military career a 90-day lifespan.
That's exactly what happened to me.
And, there were a couple guys that I served with, and one of them literally committed suicide right outside the naval base in San Diego. And it's like, granted, the military is not a friendly place. It's not for, feelings and emotions. But at the same time, before we let people get out of the military, we got to make sure that the military isn't just let someone go that's going to, end their lives 6 months later. It does no good for them, their family, the military, or anyone else. So, how do we have this conversation? I don't care if we got to talk about this every week until we're blue in the face, but, I'm done seeing memorials on social media of guys that I served with. Especially if it's in the morning time, it's just like the rest of my day is shit from there, because then I just spend the rest of the day thinking about that person and the good memories that I had with them. So, how do we fix this?
First, I think, first off, fixing it has been and is going to be a decades-long road, simply because there's so much that is misunderstood, both within the military and within larger society, about suicide specifically and mental health overall. Within the military community itself, there always has been this particular stigma of any mental health issue or whatever You know, people like to refer to the incident with Patton and that soldier in the in the tent. And you know, the guy was shell shocked, and he was like, "I can't go back out there." And Patton like whooped up on him. And what people have to understand is that is entirely contextual. Uh,
Yeah.
that is contextual within the realm of that particular engagement. Like at that particular time, at that moment, you know, they were stretched thin, and all hands had to be on deck, and it was, you know, could be nobody could afford to not be fit for duty. It was
Right.
one of those desperate times, and you know, I would characterize much of our involvement in World War II as a desperate time. Like, yeah, we made it through it, but it was by the skin of our teeth a lot of times, and within
Yeah.
within the context of that particular incident, you know, Patton was the kind of leader that was needed at that time. Now, after that is a whole different story. You know, in that moment, he was like, "Fuck your feelings, go do your fucking job," and he was right to do so. That's like anybody that freezes on the battlefield. You know, you don't want that guy. You don't want
No.
anything to do with that guy. You don't want to be near that guy because that guy gets people killed. However, as we've discussed before, you know, the military does a great job of training you for that one moment or that one engagement or, you know, that one particular experience. Years of training go to one particular experience, but
Nothing for what happens after.
exactly, there's no training for what comes next. And
No.
within the military itself, I think that has got to be a priority, because I mean, I'm sure, oh, I know Scott can, I'm sure you can too. You know, what do we get when we come back? We get out, come back from the airfield, we get on the fucking bus, and you know, we march onto the fucking parade ground in front of fucking 3 Corps, and you know, some general says his fucking words, and they're like, "All right, you're on 30 days leave. Don't beat your wife. Don't beat your kids. Don't drink too much. Don't kill your dog. Don't kill yourself. Goodbye." And that's it. And then especially when you get out, and the closer you get out of the military to the time you got back from a deployment, like it's even worse. You're just like, you're still wired. Like you still have that fight or flight instinct, and usually it's fight. There's no training you to come down from that. There's no training you how to integrate back into functioning society. You know, there's no. They'll spend years, however long you spend. I did 4 or 5 years. You know, for those 4 or 5 years, it was, oh, be a killer, be a killer, be a killer, and then you get out, and it's like, don't be fucked up. Goodbye. Thank you for your service. So there's a huge disconnect between what we're trained to do in the military and what we end up doing or trying to do after the military. And then the second thing, and I think this is really important, is to stop equivocating combat experience with or military suicide. The last report I saw a couple years ago, some 75% of military personnel that killed themselves never saw combat. As of, well, it's still today, the highest number of those quote unquote 22 that still kill themselves every day are from Vietnam. They're not from Iraq. They're not from Afghanistan. They're not even from the first Gulf War. They're from Vietnam.
Yeah.
These guys are offing themselves, you know, decades later after that long of not getting the treatment that they were promised, not getting the treatment that they deserved, getting shuffled around from doctor to doctor, and not having their legitimate issues treated in such a manner as to improve their quality of life. So we've got to be able to differentiate cause and effect. Cause of veteran suicide is not on its own combat experience. The overwhelming majority of guys that experience combat do not off themselves. The ones that don't do it until years and years and years later. And so we've got to be able to distinguish real-time mental health indicators and real life causes of certain things.
Yeah.
And until we're able to do that, we're going to keep seeing what we're seeing now, and we're not going to have an answer for it.
Well, and even, I mean, on the in the news, you've got the aircraft carrier, the George H.W. Bush. There have been 4 suicides on that ship in the past month.
Yeah, I've been keeping up with that.
I mean, like, I know. I mean, life on a ship is a whole different beast, you know, because it's a floating metal prison in one sense of the word. Is even an aircraft carrier as large as it is, when you're out in the middle of the ocean, you can't go anywhere. You know, at least, like from my perspective, at least in combat, you can just go AWOL and go to Turkey or freaking, you know, Saudi Arabia. You can walk somewhere. You're probably going to die of thirst, but at least you can kind of get away. But how is it that 4 sailors in the span of a month committed suicide on one of the newest aircraft carriers in the fleet? Like, I just don't understand how that happened.
You've been pretty quiet, Scott.
I'm just thinking like you're making a lot of the points that I want to before I get a chance to, because I'm going to loud get over now. But,
welcome to our weekly roundtable, Scott.
welcome to every conversation he and I have.
But like, how do you have a conversation with someone? Let's say that someone that comes back from combat. All right, are we all in agreement that? Granted, I'm thankful to God every day that I didn't have to end someone's life. I'm beyond thankful. But for those in the military that have, the only people that enjoy ending other people's lives are psychopaths and sociopaths. You know, they don't feel any remorse. So, granted, do some sociopaths and psychopaths get past recruiters? I'm sure. When it's the end of the month and they got to hit quota, I am more than certain. But for the average person, like, how do we help those people decompress after something like that? It can't just be a, hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good. Cool, let's go drink beers. You don't forget about it.
I mean, it's going to have to be a total 100% overhaul of how they're doing everything.
Yeah.
Because when I got out, I was just like you said. They put down on paper that I had PTSD, and it's like, well, we're having to medically board you out. I was like, okay, what does that mean? And I was like, well, you can't be in the military anymore. So, I mean, I spent the next 6 to 8 months, you know, going from the point where, you know, I was the guy, so I was the pariah of the company. You know, I couldn't carry a weapon anymore and all that. But the good side on all of that, I got therapy while I was in getting out. So I was able to decompress. Not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is they need to set up something for, like, if nothing else, like the first 6 months when somebody gets out, paid for therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a hell of a start, you know, just to start the conversation. And, you know, I think, like, I was talking with my wife about it today. So I just got my letter from the VA for hearing loss. Like, all of us got hearing loss. But when I was, you know, talking with the VA rep, I know, yeah. Hey, here's $140 and you can't hear out of your right side of the head. So, you know, thank you for your service. But like when I was talking to the VA rep, he's like, hey, you know, you could go and see a psych doc and, you know, see if there's, you know, the shit that you went through in the Suez Canal being shot at, or, you know, when you almost had to pull the trigger on someone, you know, on a Kuwaiti Coast Guard. Like, that's all fine and dandy, but then all the horror stories I've heard of veterans going to the VA and be put on a, you know, a cocktail of psychotropics. I don't want to be catatonic all day long.
I've been there.
I don't want to be numb to everything. So I've got one option, which is I can self-medicate with booze and pot, or I can go to a VA doctor, and God forbid they give me Klonopin and Clozaril and every other psychotropic, and I'm just a zombie all day long. Like, those are the only two options I see.
So I didn't go until, I don't know. I think I was out for a couple years, 3 years, about 3 years before I went to the VA, and I didn't go through the process of filing a claim or anything. I had a lot of stuff going on at the time, and everything just overloaded. And I have a long-standing history of self-mutilation, and I had a friend at the time who was very much like me, not military, but we dealt with a lot of the same demons, and we kind of kept each other in check. And I was house sitting for a friend at the time, and they paid me in booze. Like the freezer was just full of booze, so I spent the whole week just drinking my ass off. And the final straw happened, and I ended up cutting myself. And I told her I was still lucid enough to do that, but by the time she got to the house, I was catatonic. If you pointed me in the direction and gave me a nudge, I could walk, but I was catatonic. I was completely unresponsive. And so she took me to the VA and admitted me. And actually, later on that night, I remember calling Scott. I called you and Jade, and I told you where I was and what was going on. And this was, God, what was this, 2011?
See, no. It would have been, I think it was 12.
No, it was 2011, because I had left the apartment
Yeah.
in January of that year, and this was a couple months later. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. And so, I spent my time in there. It was funny when I was in there, and I used the word funny in every sense you can imagine, because ended up in the fucking psych ward. I mean, padded walls and all. Like, I didn't know that padded walls were a real thing until I got there, and I had padded walls, and I was just like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of lit right now. Like, I'm having some fun. And the funny thing is, there was another scout there, and like 4 days into it, they had to separate the both of us because we just automatically gravitated towards each other like scouts do, and we just caused so much trouble. And so they separated us. We couldn't be friends and anything. And that's when I first started having to take the meds. And I got out, and they gave me, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months worth. And I took that and then didn't take it. And if you know anything about being on meds, that's a horrible thing to do.
Yeah,
and
that's bad.
Yeah. And then I went back in 2012 and talked to a shrink, and that's when I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, and he helped me through that, helped me understand it, and come up with a game plan and all that stuff. And I was on a couple meds, but not like everything. And then he left, and I had another doctor, and he gave me all sorts of fucking meds, like so many, and it was ridiculous. And I quit going after that. So like, I've been on that cocktail. I know exactly what these guys are talking about when they're talking, like, the weight gain and the weight loss and the moodiness, and the fact that literally a major side effect of every single one of these drugs is suicidal ideation. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I went off cold turkey, which is hard to do. And I always joke that I've been off meds ever since then. I keep my prescriptions refilled, just in case, but I've been off since 2012. And I always joke that it would be easier for everybody around me if I were medicated. But I remember exactly how I was when I was on it. And outward, it was easier for everybody else. But inside my head, it was way worse. It's like, the best way I can describe it is being fully conscious, fully lucid, and trapped inside your own mind and not being able to reach out or do anything or say anything. I think of the worst acid trip I've ever been on, and that was better in comparison to, being on those meds. And it's just, in all honesty, I probably should be medicated. Well, no, I definitely should be. But that was one of those things that just set me over the edge. And I was like, you know what? No, because that's not cool. But it really has to do with having the right doctor. I think that's one of the biggest parts of it. Most doctors will simply prescribe you something whenever you show up in the office and have these issues. Most doctors will not walk you through the process and explain everything to you like you're fucking retarded, which I definitely was about all of this stuff at the time. I can talk about mental health now, and people are like, "Oh wow, you have like a fucking master's or a PhD?" And I'm just like, "No, bro, I've just been through it."
No, I was a patient. God damn it.
Yeah, so Dr. Decker was probably the best thing to happen to me during that entire point in my life, because he sat there with me and explained everything. And I hadn't been speaking more than like 5-10 minutes, and he's like, "I know exactly what's up with you, and this is how we're going to take care of it." And that guy, him doing what he did and how he did it was instrumental in me learning how to manage myself. And the funny thing is, I had problems long before I went into the Army.
Do you think that the military can exacerbate pre-existing shit?
Most definitely. I tell people all the time, the military will do one of a few things. It'll take the best about you and make it better, the worst about you and make it worse, or a combination of both. And it's
a hard time finding the happy medium.
It really is. So with me, the best parts about me were fucking spectacular. The worst parts about me were fucking abominable.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of years of, working through a whole lot of stuff, a lot of times on my own, to be able to find that neutral zone. Trying to keep the good things and let go of the bad. And I'm not entirely sure you really ever get rid of the quote unquote bad things. I think you just learn to live with them. And yeah. Scott, you need to answer some questions, because I've been talking a long time.
No, Scott, are you, if you don't mind asking, are you still seeing a counselor?
I am. I actually was not for a while. I was pretty much like Ryan. I was on my pills, and then I was like, you know what? Screw these pills. And I went from probably about 2012 until, about June, July. Me and Ryan both had a very fun summer. So,
We had a what?
So we both had a very fun summer.
What, 2009?
No, this summer.
What happened this summer?
Because I lost my mind at the beginning of the summer.
Oh, yeah. And then I lost mine like 2 weeks later.
And I actually, I went and did a mental health check-in at the ER at the VA, and started and got set up, and I've been going to a psychologist every week now. I'm on meds. I'm on a good mix. Like he said, I actually got a good doctor in my psychiatrist. That, like, the first things I took it right before we took a trip to Philly, and it was the worst thing in the world the first go around, because I had sleeping pills that would not let me go into REM sleep. It would wake me up every time I went into REM sleep. And
those are the worst. The sleeping pills? Ooh,
yeah.
Never fucking again. Not a snowball's chance in hell.
And then my stuff throughout the day just made me in a this weird, sluggy, high but not high situation, and I couldn't function. I tried to function, but it just wasn't working. But I ended up getting a good mix after talking to this psychiatrist, and I mean, mine's doing well now. And again, I'm seeing. Go ahead.
Didn't you go on to? Aren't you? Oh God, aren't you like moderating some sort of group or something?
The wife and I are doing a grief counseling group.
Yeah, that.
For people who have lost anybody, really. We do that once a month, and that's some heavy stuff too.
So, he's definitely the nicer one of us because I ain't moderating shit.
You just give him the band hammer, Ryan. I can see it now.
I'm pretty much in everywhere I go. I'm the bad cop, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Like my coworker right now, he's the good cop. I'm the bad cop. Like there's a couple of people that he's just like, yeah, they're terrified of you, and I'm like, good. I'm not the guy to run groups.
So, just out of curiosity, and maybe for anyone that might see these videos, I know for me, I've lost 3 guys that I served with to suicide. I've lost 2 of them to combat. Not thankfully, but it's been the most recent one was my buddy Hernandez, and that was 6 years ago. What can we do for our brothers and sisters other than, I've seen like in different veterans groups, like, hey, welfare check, everyone check with your battle buddy. But like, even I've seen that in groups, and I begin to start tuning that out because it seems so generic to me. We're like, check in with your battle buddy, but I don't know how. Like, I don't know. Like, do I start a group chat and be like, hey, fuckers, how's everyone doing? What kind of shit do you have going on? Like, what can we do to help each other out? Because I don't trust the VA to help out. And I don't think that our friends and family that didn't serve really know how, in any way, shape, or form, to check in with us. Like, how do we do it internally, but also educate our friends and family to check in?
Well, I don't like to throw the words toxic masculinity around, but I think when it comes to, people, like owning up to, what's going on in their head, there is a lot of that. I'm a man, so, I'm just supposed to, deal with my crap, and, that's it. I don't need anybody else to help me, and it's hard to break the, cycle of, I'm not saying we're, the most, emotionally well men, but we know that it's okay to ask for help. And we know it doesn't make you any less of a person to ask for help. Like Ryan, when I went in the military, I had a life before the military. I went in the military at 23. I already had a kid at that time. So it's like, there's nothing wrong with getting help, but that's the problem. There's always that, and while you're in, there's that stigma of getting help because, you're not a good soldier if you're trying to get help. And that, if anything, that makes you a better soldier because you're wanting to function better.
Yeah.
You're wanting to be your best person so you can keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And but when we get out, it's just like, if people don't want help, they're not going to get it. But we should find avenues of, if they need it, they can just make a beeline straight for it and not have to worry about what other people think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right. That whole, like he said, I don't like using the phrase toxic masculinity either, but that specific part of it, suck it up, be a man, that is definitely part of it. I agree. I remember being like 8 years old, and this is not a condemnation of my father, but he was raised a certain kind of way. I remember being a kid and knowing that something was wrong, and that I needed to talk to somebody. And I asked my parents. I was like, "Something's wrong. Can I go talk to somebody?" And they sent me to the pastor. That was, you grew up in a black family like I did. That's like the first and last person you go to. And his, again, not a condemnation of him. It's just based off of what was available at the time. The response was, you're a rebellious child. Here's some Bible verses to memorize and go be obedient. And again, when I was in high school, I asked, and I started cutting myself when I was in 8th grade, and so I knew that wasn't normal, and so I was like, "Yo, I need to talk to somebody." My dad, you don't need to talk to nobody. What goes on in the house stays in the house, and that the house was both literal and figurative. You didn't talk about personal problems. You didn't discuss those things. That wasn't something you did. And I carried that into the military, and then the military just exemplified that. You compartmentalize everything. You just push it back. I am a grown-ass man. I have a fucking 6-year-old son, and to this day I am still one of the most emotionally unapproachable people that I know. And it's caused a lot of problems with close relationships, both platonic and romantic. It's not that I don't feel emotion. It's not that I don't have emotion. I do not know how to express it. It either comes out very little over a very long time, or it comes out all at once, both of which cause tremendous problems.
Yep.
As someone who has attempted suicide, the most recent time was a couple months ago. A couple months ago.
Ryan, you had posted about that on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
About, so, I know I had my own close call when I was serving. How do we keep? Man, I don't even know how to fucking preface this question, but how do we put safeguards in place for ourselves? Because I know for me, when I came close, I was on deployment in 2001. Now, I'm an only child, I'm a mama's boy, and literally when I cut the cord was when I flew out of Oakland to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp. And so when I was on deployment in 2001 out in the middle of the ocean, it was everything bad that could have happened all at once. And there was not a fucking thing that I could have done otherwise to prevent it. And all of a sudden, it felt as if the weight of the world was no longer bearable. It was just for lack of a better way to put it, it was just a fucking cloud that enveloped me. And I was dead set on ending that cloud one way or another. How do we safeguard ourselves from that?
Ironically, if you'd have asked me that 3 months ago, just before, I would have had, a definite answer. It would have been intelligent. It would have been educated. It would have been the best thing you've ever heard. I thought I had it figured out. I thought I was good to go. It's been years since I've gone that far down the rabbit hole, and I figured, I was past the worst of it. And this last time, usually I can look back on it and identify each and every turn where I went wrong. This last time, I have no idea because it came completely out of nowhere. One thing I will say is you have to absolutely be extremely self-analytical. And this is where it gets hard for people around me or people trying to be close to me, because I'm extremely self-analytical. I'm also extremely analytical of everything and everyone around me. So that, it has its side effects sometimes, but I managed to get to a pretty decent place over the last few years by being extremely, extremely self-analytical. Whether I'm happy or sad or angry or depressed or whatever the emotion is, I have to catch myself and I have to ask, why am I feeling this way? When did I start feeling this way? What has happened within, the most recent time frame that could have caused me to feel this way? And then I have to ask myself, is the way that I'm feeling legitimate, or is it, emotionally enhanced? If I'm pissed off at something, I have to ask. And I've asked Scott numerous times, like, yo, this is what's going on. This is how I feel about it. Is this legit or no? And there'll be times where he's like, no, I feel like you're justified in feeling that way. And then there's times where he's like, no, dude, you're way the fuck out of line. Over the years,
someone that's that litmus test. It's the top from Inception.
Yes, I do. It was not. It was.
But you've got someone that acts as that top, that is your level, that will tell you, without fear of judgment or anything else. It's a brother to brother, brother to sister, sister to brother, whatever. But it's looking out for you, going, this is legit, or no, I think your viewpoint might be a little bit skewed.
Exactly. But here's the thing, though. For people, and I say like me, even though we might have that person, we don't always make use of them. I definitely didn't. The last time,
and sometimes we don't want to because we're so fucking bullheaded.
Well, it's not really a matter of wanting to. It's getting so stuck inside yourself. This last time, when I say it was a complete 180 out of nowhere, I cannot find a more apt way of describing that. 1 minute I was literally okay, and the next minute I was completely not okay. And so
you had someone close to you commit suicide, correct?
Yeah. Usually,
and is that what triggered it? Started the dominoes?
I think that was. So I have a bad habit of underestimating the intensity of the things that happen to me. I might go through something and not really think it's all that significant or whatever, and it's not until somebody else points it out or whatever that I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that was pretty intense. But 9 times out of 10, I can keep track of myself. I know exactly where I'm standing. I know how and where I am. That particular time, I did not. Every time I've tried to commit suicide before, it was planned. It was thought out. It was reasoned. And because I'm a writer, it was written out detail by detail. That one time, it most definitely was not. And I was drinking that night, which definitely didn't help the situation. But on top of being self-analytical, you have to know what things or what people or places or experiences or whatever are likely to are more likely to put you in that kind of headspace. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I cannot get drunk. I can't. I can drink, but I cannot get drunk, because if I do, for the first few hours, I'll be perfectly fucking fine. I'll be happy. I'll be the life of the fucking party. I'll be having a grand old time. But behind closed doors, alcohol lowers your inhibitions. So that self-awareness, that self-analysis goes away. And everything...
give a fuck out the window.
Well, everything floods in. So what people need to understand about suicide, and it's going to sound really odd, people who threaten to commit suicide, people who talk about committing suicide, are the least likely to actually do it. That's not a. It's not a condemnation of them. It's not a. It's not diminishing whatever they are going through. But
cries for help are not always, are not ever that literal.
Exactly. So the ones when it comes to suicide, when it comes to the act, the moment of decision, you do it. You're not going to call somebody. I was sitting there in front of my house, and I have an entire family inside that house that absolutely loves me and does not want to see anything happen to me, and I know that. But in that moment, that didn't matter. I could have called 20 people, Scott being at the top of the list, and in that moment, that doesn't matter. When you are at the point of making that decision and following up on that action, that everybody says, I wish I'd have known, I wish I could have done something, wish you could have called me, oh, they knew they could have called me, this and that and the other. Honestly, when it comes to that moment of choice, it's got absolutely nothing to do with anybody else in your life. Amy knows, or she knew from years worth of experience, we would have moved heaven and earth to save her life. We have done it before. She knew that. I was an hour away. She knew that. But in that moment of choice, there was absolutely nothing that could have been done. A couple months ago, about 3 months ago, in that moment of choice, there was absolutely nothing that could have been done. So, the buddy checks, on Facebook, hey, check on your battle buddy. Hey, everybody doing good. It doesn't seem like a lot. It might seem generic. It might seem, superficial, but honestly, I've seen more lives saved from just that than, anybody trying to be overly personal. Because inevitably, somebody's like, hey, everybody good. And that one person comes across that post and they're like, no, I'm not. And then everybody jumps onto that and they're just like, yo, what's up? We are here. That person commenting, no, I'm not good. They're on the way. They're on that road. They're jumping down the rabbit hole. And that action of commenting, no, I'm not good, that's their last desperate attempt to grab on to the rim of that rabbit hole and hang on. And so for people to be there and to be able to grab on and pull them back up, that means everything. If somebody's going to do it, they're going to do it, and we're not going to know when. We're not. It's they could be euphoric, they could be perfectly fine to them, and then in the blink of an eye, they're gone. So it's not so much a matter of what to do for that person in that moment. It's a matter of what do we do to keep them from getting that far in the first place. Because once you pass a certain point, there's no coming back. Because
I mean, I'm, it's kind of to the point, but when someone asks me if I believe in God or not, when I was on deployment in 2001, so my close friends and family know, my nickname for my deployment in 2001 was Can't Get Right. Literally nothing I could try and do ended up proper, whether I was standing a watch, whether I was operating machinery. Like, I was, no matter how much heart I had, I was an eternal fuck up. Now, when it came to uniforms, I was fine. But, like, the day-to-day job, I just couldn't do it properly. I couldn't learn quick enough, couldn't do anything quick enough. And, like, for me, like, that part was fine. You know, I've been bullied my whole life, so I can deal with people picking on me with words. I can, you know, whatever, fuck you, and carry on. But I had gotten an email from my mom that a girl that I dated in school that we ended on horrible terms. I had said things, horrible things, had passed away. And I remember I was laying in my bunk and I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the fact that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't learn my job properly. And, like, without even thinking, I got out of my rack, put on shoes, and I walked to the very back end of the ship. And if, you know, for those that don't know about how propulsion works, you could jump essentially 20 feet behind a ship, and the suction from it will pull you back to the ship. And then the screws will just take care of the job from there. But I don't remember, I remember getting out of my rack, but I don't remember anything from there. So I walked up, I climbed, 2 flights of stairs and walked 200 feet to the aft end of the ship. And I was literally, a foot away from the edge of the ship. All I needed to do was take one step and then go. And I remember, so this is to the point of believing in God or not, but I got to the back end of the ship and I started to take a step and I couldn't move. Couldn't move either of my feet. And all I remember hearing was, I have greater things in store for you. Like, that's all I heard in my head. And call it divine intervention, but if it hadn't been for that voice that I heard of God or whatever it was, a guardian angel or something or someone, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And so, like trying to talk with, with people that, like you said, Brian, people that talk about, committing suicide or saying they're going to, I understand that all of a sudden it feels like an out-of-body experience, that like your subconscious knows what the fuck is going on and is screaming at you not to do it, but your current in the moment state of being, state of mind is just saying, fuck it, I'll let the world burn, do what you got to do to end it. And it's not a good out-of-body experience like when you get a good freaking, strain of pot, or when you're drinking top shelf whiskey and you're like, oh, this is good shit right here. It's the worst feeling because you're paralyzed but still moving at the same time. And trying to explain that to someone.
For you, for me, I remember each and every time I've tried, and I didn't have that experience. I was good. I was the best I'd ever felt because I finally decided that it was going to end. And I was good with that. I was okay with that. And that people ask me, well, no, they don't ask me, but people assume that, I'm not scared of stuff. I'll be the first person to tell you I am more scared of myself than anything else. Because I know how I am when I get there, and absolutely nothing that anybody tells me in that moment is going to make a difference. I don't reach out. I don't stop. I don't try to. This last time, I had a moment of lucidity, and I don't know how, but I managed to call the fucking hotline that everybody talked shit about. And, I don't remember his name, but like the guy did his damnedest, and I sank back. I went back down the rabbit hole, and I just put the phone down and walked into the middle of the street. And I don't remember anything after that. But when I'm there, and I'm not coming back. I can't think of a better example for divine intervention than my life. Because aside from the times that I have tried to off myself, there have been plenty of other times completely out of my control where I've almost died and I am still alive. So if that doesn't, if that doesn't give credence to the existence of some divine being, I don't know what is, because there is literally nothing else on this earth that can explain why I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Like the times that I have made it out, the wreck that I got in a fucking horrible wreck. Not,
Dude, that was fucking gnarly. The pictures you posted? Oh my god.
dude, it wasn't even a month after I tried to kill myself. And I was
fucking
just
Bell
like,
County.
I was just sitting there and I was just like, everybody that showed up, from the people that saw it to the first responders to the fucking tow truck guy, they were all like, how the fuck are you alive right now? Like, you should not be.
Like, there's a Grim Reaper with blue balls, something fierce near you.
So
I mean,
That county just doesn't like you.
it really doesn't. It really, really, really does not. The same county, the same months, like what, 10 years apart? But I mean, when it comes to people that care for people that are having these problems, and I have friends that have never dealt with it themselves, meaning like they've never been suicidal, but they know people that have, where they know people that are having problems, and they'll ask me sometimes, what do I do? And the only thing I tell them is just be there. That's literally the best thing you can do. Simply be there. Everybody wants to have the right words. They want to do the right thing or whatever. And honestly, the more people try to insert themselves, the further people would withdraw. But simply being there and making your presence known without being overbearing is the best thing anybody can do. People who are suicidal or have, some of these issues, I have PTSD and bipolar and probably a couple other things that I can't pronounce, but for people like that, like, you have to be very, very self-aware. It takes a long time to learn
Get that
how.
right,
Yeah. It takes a long time to learn how to check yourself, how to manage yourself, how to analyze yourself. And
Ryan and I have had this discussion many times.
Many, many times. People ask me, or they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know you were bipolar. I didn't know you dealt with this or that or the other. It must not be that bad for you because you don't act like it." And I'm like, no, it's fucking horrible. Like, it's a daily thing. Some days may be better than others, but on the whole, it's fucking horrible. I have just had years to practice. And, a couple months ago is evidence enough that I've still got more to learn. Like I said, I thought I was good, and then I wasn't. So it's a matter of learning yourself, and going through that process, you learn a whole lot of things about yourself. You are forced to confront a lot of things that you would rather not know. You are forced to learn the truth about yourself, and you may be okay with it, you may not be okay with it, but if you plan to live, you've got to figure out how to be okay with it. And it's not like there's no guidebook, there's no quick fix, there's no equation that applies to everybody. You just have to keep going at it day after day after day. And it really is a daily thing. Like, you have to tell yourself every day, I'm gonna keep track of this. I'm gonna watch this. I need to check myself on this and that and the other. Because take me for example. My life could be going fucking perfectly. I could be having a wonderful fucking life, and I'll be so incredibly happy that I'll end up convincing myself that this is it. This is the pinnacle of my life, and I should end it right now. Or I could be on the other end and be like, this is the absolute worst I've ever been. This is the absolute worst I could ever be. I should end it right now. So, like, it's a matter of constant self-awareness. And it's hard. It's not easy at all. And it's not quick. And it will cause problems with people around you. Sometimes I have to be so self-aware that I'm not able to give the attention that someone else might want or need at the time. That causes problems. And I'm just over here like, dude, I feel you and I am so sorry, but I'm trying to stay alive right now. And so it's a constant balancing act. And, you've got to want to live. People will tell you, find a reason to live and this and that and the other, or, live for your kids or live for this or that or the other. Over the years, I've told Amy some of those same things. And regardless what you anchor yourself to, you've got to have the will. Because if you don't, like, you're just, nothing else matters. Like, none of the reasons that you've given yourself are going to matter. So like, you have to be the reason. And it's just like, it sucks. But if we're going to be honest about the situation itself, like, we've got to come to accept and acknowledge that sometimes people are just done. And the pain and the confusion and stuff from somebody else's suicide is rarely about them, about that person. It's about the people around them. Years ago when Robin Williams committed suicide, I had made some smart ass remark about, I don't honestly even remember what I said, but it was kind of a dick thing to say. And Scott had an understandable reaction to it. And like, we didn't talk for, I don't know, a few months after that. And then later on, I came to realize how what I said was wrong. And so, like, it's all a matter of being self-aware. Like, I cannot stress self-awareness enough. I really can't. You've got to be self-aware. And the sad thing is that most people they don't want to be self-aware. It requires a level of honesty and intensity that can sometimes be worse than what you think killing yourself would be like, And so It's just.
So, Ryan, like, I know, we're in the Boone Cutler group. What impact do you think that, like, the Spartan Pledge has for people, or for veterans especially? Do you think, like, should every veteran know about the Spartan Pledge?
Yeah, I think they should. I personally know quite a few people who have not taken their lives because of that pledge. It's definitely one of those things that you can use to hold on to anchor yourself in the midst of everything going on. It can definitely be one of those things that you lock onto.
Yeah. And, I heard about the Spartan Pledge and I thought, like, goddamn, Boone, that guy's been, through the fucking ringer and back again. So, couple things I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on. So I had read in the news, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, but the VA, like of course, they're wrought with controversy and everything, but there was a situation where VA doctors were essentially paid to put veterans on conservatorship that were at risk for mental health. So, for me, I mean, that's a huge fear of mine, of like going to the VA and talking to them about the shit that I went through in the military. Like, I ran a nonprofit for the mentally ill. It was a living facility. And I saw people who were under conservatorship. And so, like, for me, my biggest fear of going and talking to a VA doctor is if one of these assholes suddenly decides, hey, you should be put on conservatorship. And I'm like, no, thank you. I'll strong hard pass on that one. Like, how do we convince our brothers and sisters to go and talk to someone at the VA?
Fuck. That's a whole other conversation.
Because I mean, like for real. I mean, like the nonprofit that I ran, it was a living facility for 24 people, and a few of the guys that lived there were veterans, and they were on conservatorship, and their conservator got to determine where they could go, when they could go, what they could do with their money. Like, these people, literally, the only choices they had were, this is when I can piss and shit, and this is when I can't piss and shit, and because I live in a facility, this is when I get to eat my meals. Those were the only freedoms that they had. And so for me, I'm like, no, fuck it. I'll self-medicate if there's a risk that, like, what if I go to a VA doc and talk to them about, the shit that happened in the military? And they're like, hey, we want to put you on this drug cocktail. And I'm like, no, thank you. And like all these VA doctors that have been indicted for malpractice because they put veterans on conservatorship when they shouldn't have, like, I mean, and like I was talking about with my wife about that today, I'm like, it may be a righteous 0.1% of 1% rabbit hole, but like I can't go to a VA doc and run the risk of them putting me on conservatorship, even if I'm like, hey, I kind of got some anxiety and shit from when I was in the military. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just a paranoid rabbit hole that I'm going down, but it's hard for me to trust in the VA when the only thing that they've done is fuck over veterans on a regular basis since the beginning of time.
Honestly, I don't know that particular question has a one and done answer. I've had good and bad experiences with going to the VA. Some VAs are fucking horrible. Like the one that I initially started going to, the one that I saw my grandfather go to when I was a child. That place is still ranked as one of the worst in the country. The one that I go to whenever I can, when I'm back home, not on the road, it's fucking great. So I think it really depends on the facility itself. I think it depends on your level of openness to begin with. It's entirely possible to go and, just kind of feel out the situation first. The past couple times that I've gone, I've made it abundantly clear that I would not go on meds. And, one of them tried to keep pushing it and kept asking me, so do you want the meds? And I'm just like, no. So I think one of the things you can do is make that abundantly clear. Make it clear that you are trying to find alternative methods to manage your issues. And then the other thing is to know your rights. Go to how do you pronounce it? Ombudsman or whatever.
Ombudsman.
Yeah. Go to them and explain exactly what you want and exactly what you don't want. and take it from there. They can usually recommend a course of action for you. You can go to a patient advocate and do the exact same thing. That's what the ombudsman is.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of research on your own, and I can't stress that enough. Researching on your own, and it's murky at first because you don't necessarily know what to ask. But like you said, we're both in the Warfighter Topics group. I've been part of that group since before it was Warfighter Topics. Boone has been one of my
Boone Color Secret group, I think.
yeah. Boone's been my mentor. God, I want to say almost 10 years now. Me and that dude have had so many 2 a.m. conversations. It's ridiculous. But
why can't he be in politics? That's what I would like to know.
Finding
as a side note,
he has his reasons. Finding
he'd probably hurt too many feelings.
Finding someone who you trust and someone who is knowledgeable about the system is key. In any venture, in any situation, in any environment, you want to find the person who knows more than you. Whether it's work, whether it's social life, a hobby, a sport, anything, anywhere you go, you want to find the person who knows more than you, and you want to become friends with that person. You want to learn from them. You want to benefit from their wisdom. There are numerous veterans groups that anybody can go to on Facebook and just start asking questions. And researching for yourself, asking questions, figuring out what the right questions are, going and getting a feel for your local Veterans Administration facility, knowing what your rights as a patient are. And it varies state by state. It definitely varies state by state. So you want to know that too. Just educating yourself. Educating yourself is the biggest thing. You got to educate yourself, and you got to be willing to look for answers. There's not always go to your local fucking DAV. When I filed for my claim, that's exactly what I did. I waited 7 years after I got out to file for a claim. I was that stubborn ass son of a bitch that refused to do it. And the older guys that I worked with, they ripped me a new one. And one of them gave me his card. He was like, I'm the president or commander or whatever of this DAV chapter. And he was like, come fucking see me on Monday, and we're going to get you squared away. And what the fuck did I do? I went to the office and I went and saw him that Monday or whatever, and they got me squared away. Go to the VFW, go to the Legion, go to DAV, go to any of the VSOs. You got to reach out. You got to go somewhere. You got to ask somebody. We have a bad habit of trying to do everything on our own and trying to tough it out. We joke about self-medicating, but we do that, and while we're self-medicating, we're not making our situation any better. We're simply staying the same. So if we want things to change, we've got to be willing to make changes. I will never, tell somebody, don't have a drink or, don't smoke a bowl or whatever. Fuck, I do it all the time. But I also talk to other people. I go to places, I ask questions, I learn from people who have been there before me. That is one of the most important things that you can possibly do in order to better your situation. Like, you have to be willing to educate yourself. You have to be willing to make certain changes. If you're feeling a certain kind of way, you've got to learn what made you feel that way and why you reacted the way you did. You've got to be able to learn how to keep certain things and people and places out of your life. Like, I had to go through and cut a bunch of people out of my life. I had to stop going to a bunch of places that I went to for years. They weren't bad people. They weren't necessarily bad places, but they were bad for me. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be willing to do that. And unfortunately, what I see happen with a lot of people, a lot of guys, they're not willing to make some of the necessary changes that they need to make in order to improve their situation and learn how to handle their stuff. So, you know, they keep themselves in the same situations with the same people, and they keep finding themselves in the same circumstances and wonder why shit's not happening. Um, it's a top to bottom overhaul of the way you live your life. Uh, how I am now versus how I was 10, 12 years ago, completely different. I honestly cannot tell you how I survived that long because I was making horrible decisions and I was not living my best life at all.
Yeah.
But once I learned, I had to stay on that track. And literally every single time I stray from that, I find myself back in that situation. So, like I said before, you've got to be self-aware, and you've got to analyze yourself. You've got to learn yourself. You've got to learn what sets you off, and you've got to be willing to make changes. Yeah, you just have to. You know, I've lost a lot of people, and it sucks. And you know, each one, they never managed to bring themselves to a point where they were willing to make the necessary changes. They wanted it. They wanted things to be different, but they hadn't quite got to the point where they were willing to do what they needed to do on their end to bring about that change. And, you know, I can't fault them for that. Everybody is where they are, when they are, how they are. But in terms of stopping things, or at least slowing it down, or making things better, it all starts with that person, the individual. It always starts with the individual. We could have every resource, we could have every facility and every good doctor and every dollar that we want. And if the individual is not yet ready to make the necessary changes in order to improve their situation, it's not going to make a difference. So, I mean, that sounds bleak, but
yeah, but I mean, you know, one thing that I think, you know, like for me, the one thing the military taught me, and I mean, still, I mean, I've been out for 15 years, but it still, you know, resonates with me is, you know, there's the tenets of the military, you know, honor, courage, and commitment. But there's also the unspoken tenet of accountability. And, you know, again, kind of, I was talking with my wife before we got on, you know, the person that I am today is different than the person I was 10 years ago, is much more different than the person that I was 15 years ago when I got out, and beyond different than the person I was before I joined, you know, 19 years ago. And,
oh God, yeah.
you know, and so, like, looking at the contrast, it's am I more open-minded now than I was 20 years ago? Absolutely. 20 years ago, I was a 18-year-old Bible-thumping virgin that thought that everything was the devil. Like, everything. And then I go on deployment, and I go to a country like Thailand, and I see fathers pimping out their 12 and 13-year-old daughters just to keep food on the table, and realize, okay, that's the devil. That's something truly evil. Right. And, you know, I realized that, you know, there's, well, on some hands, I might be more patient now than I was 20 years ago for some things. On other things, I'm like hair fire, you know, trigger happy. And, you know, my wife, unfortunately, has been the first one to notice that, like, I can lose my temper in a heartbeat. And I don't just go from cold to hot. I go from, Antarctic to, lava. And is it because of the military? I don't know. I mean, it could just be the fact that, I'm, a lot more passionate, a lot more convicted, I guess, than I was. But, I think the military, like you said, Ryan, that the military can both take the things you're great at and make you even better, and take the things that you're bad at and turn it into your own personal demon that doesn't just affect you, but affects your friends and family. So, I definitely think, the topic of mental health is something that I hope that we touch on frequently, and, come up with stuff to address and figure out ways for our brothers and sisters to, cope with and, get better on, and, help each other out along the way. So maybe one of these days we'll be blessed enough to have Boone on with us, and he can share some of his insights and maybe talk to us about the benefits of medicinal marijuana for the warfighter community, because I think that's something that I would definitely love to learn a lot about more, but I'm like a fucking rookie when it comes to knowledge about that. So I would love to learn a lot about that from him.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So, all right, man. Well, I know we're way over, but I think it was time very well spent talking about everything. So hopefully Scott can join us again, and if anyone finds benefit in this podcast, we'll be here every Monday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 Eastern time, and we'll be live. So join us on YouTube, join us on Facebook, and hopefully someone can grab some benefit from us. Do you have anything to wrap up before we go, Ryan?
No, my shit's about to die. I'm good.
All right, man. Well, have a great evening, brother, and I guess I'll chat with you next week.
All right.
All right, dude. Have a good one.
You too, man.
Later.